right, good morning. If you go with me to Psalm 23, Psalm 23. So we are in doing a series in the life of Christ right now. If you turn me down a little more, please, in the life of Christ. And in this series in the life of Christ, I was just telling Jacob about a week ago. I said, I know we're in the life of Christ now, but man, my heart is really on Psalm 23. I've just kind of been meditating on that a lot lately, and so I. In the process of preparing for this morning, I just felt impressed by my heart to go back and just do a one-off on Psalm 23, and it is. So I'm not going to. We did a whole series on Psalm 23 a couple of years ago, and but today the plan is just to do a one-off. For some of y'all, that would be a refresher, and for others, it might be something that is brand new. But in Psalm 23, Psalm 91 used to be the most popular psalm can you turn me down a little more, please? Psalm 91 used to be the most popular psalm in the Bible, and around the 1500s it swapped to Psalm 23. And in that Psalm 23, that's when it switched to be the most popular psalm, and it's one that we commonly hear sometimes in funerals. Sometimes we hear them in people's different devotions. Sometimes you'll see them on plaques on a wall, and it is one that you see just about everywhere. But Psalm 23 is one that is very, very potent. So if you go to Psalm 23 in verse 1, it says, a psalm of David. It says, Adonai, or the Lord, Yehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of Yehovah, dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So in this place of Psalm 23, you'll see that just as a picture here, you'll see that the mountainous terrain here, and that's kind of the setting by which the whole background of Psalms 23 is given. It's the background of Psalm 23 is a mountainous, rugged Judean wilderness. And we get the idea here that is Psalm 23. The sheep are walking around in alfalfa grass and pastures of the west and kind of thing. And that's not what Psalm 23 is about at all. Psalm 23 is about the ruggedest mountainous terrain that in the Judean wilderness that's next to the area in which he lives. So you'll see here, this is the Dead Sea. This right here is Jerusalem. Here is Bethlehem. And this area here, this mountainous wilderness of the Judean wilderness, this is the background for Psalm 23. It is not flat plains with lots of rain and flat lands with grass and animals everywhere. It is a rugged, mountainous terrain, which you see here in this Judean mountainous wilderness. So it starts off in Psalm 23, it says, the Lord is my shepherd. And if you've been with us for any period of time, you'll know that when sometimes I'm speaking about with scriptures, I use the name Yehovah, and sometimes people say Yahweh and pronunciation of his name. Anytime you see in the Older Testament in all caps, that is saying that is where his name is being used in Hebrew, but it is being changed from a name to a title in our translations. But what they do is sometimes they capitalize it so you'll know what it is in Hebrew. So in Yehovah, if you had Jehovah, it's the same thing in Hebrew. There's no J sound in Hebrew, so although it was spelled with a J, sometimes it was always pronounced with a Y sound. But you'll have, Yehovah is a combination of three verb forms, meaning to be. You have Yehiyeh, Hoveh, and Hayah. Yehiyeh, Hoveh, and Yahya means he will be, he is, he was. So the meaning of his name is all-encompassing. And so from here you see the Yehovah. So you'll see that from the extraction of the three tenses, he will be, he is, he was, and that's where we get the three contractions out of that, meaning he is, he will be, he is, he was, and where you get the name of Yehovah, and that's where you get his name. And so basically he's saying that I am, and I am. In the case I am and that I will be, I am that I am right here in present tense, and I am as in he was, because it's all three verb tenses of to be. And that brings up a lot of times people question, well, what does the passage say where it says that I am who I am? And they say, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the children of Israel, and they ask me, what is his name? What should I say to them? God answered, Moses, I am who I am that I am. And so they said, well, what does that mean? Is his name Jehovah or Yehovah, or some people pronounce Yahweh? And with that there, what does it mean? I am who I am. But if we go and continue reading in the very next verse, we'll see what's going on here. It says, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, and they ask me, what is his name? What should I say to them? And God answered Moses, I am who I am. God also said to Moses, you are to say to the children of Israel, Yehovah, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and the name by which I shall be remembered from generation to generation. So in the very next verse, the whole idea of I am who I am and how does that relate to his name, it tells you that his name there in Hebrew is very clear. I am who I am, and my name is Yehovah or Jehovah, and with that I shall be remembered from generation to generation for all time. And so the idea is it starts off in this passage in Psalm 23, it says, the Lord or Yehovah is my shepherd. And with this, the thing that I always come back to in the process of meditating on the scripture and even meditating on his name is because sometimes that, we go through periods in our life where we don't have a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, we're kind of just coasting through life. And other times it's like, will the challenges, will the punches ever stop? It's like they're coming and they're hitting me and they're hitting me and they're hitting me. It's like, all right, God, I need to come up for air. Okay, if they're going to keep coming, let me come for air and grab a breath before they keep coming at me. The waves keep coming over me. And sometimes we go through these challenges sometimes with our life and our challenges of the hardships that go through our life. And sometimes we go through these different phases. And sometimes some people's phases are longer than others. But with this here, if you go back to the very meaning of his name, is that when he know that he was, he is, he will be. So whatever trials or circumstances I face today, he was there with me before them. He'll be with me during the midst of them, and he'll be there with me after those trials. And if I understand in the depths of my heart and my soul and the meditations that go therein, that if I understand that he was with me before, during, and after, he will always be with me in the midst of the trials, and so that I have a shepherd who will not leave me. He says, I will never leave you or forsake you. He's not saying when the challenges come, all right, now, whoa, man, it's a challenge, man. You're going to go do that challenge on your own. He doesn't say that. He says, I will never leave you. That means in the good times. It means in the hard times, I will never leave you or forsake you. And that is that the promise we have from the Lord, he'll never leave us or forsake us in the midst of good times, in the midst of neutral times, in the midst of bad times. He will always be there with us. The Lord, Yehovah, is my shepherd. Those of us who know the name, you'll see it's mentioned, I believe, 6 or 7 times here in the King James. That's where we get the name of Yehovah, and we understand that in ancient translations where his name has been used, where we come through to understand it today. But look what it says here. It says, Yehovah is my shepherd. And from the viewpoint, when he's saying that Yehovah is my shepherd, remember, David is a shepherd. And so now he is a shepherd to sheep. But he's saying, you know what? Although I am a shepherd to sheep, I too have a shepherd. And he says, so all that he's doing is he's analyzing the sheep and perhaps the goats that he has. He's looking at the relationship between he and his animals, and he's understanding this diversity between himself and God. So just as he is a shepherd and he is leading, so too does he have a shepherd. So David is a shepherd to the sheep, and so too God is his shepherd as well, who is leading him. Sheep, as long as they have food, water, safety, and a general sense of well-being, they're good to go. And so many times that we go through life and we stress about different aspects of our life and challenges in our life. And what he wants us to do is to go back to, especially in Western society, to go back to simplify our life. If we have food, if we have water, we have safety, and it doesn't say everything's going to be perfect, but a general sense of well-being, sheep are good to go. Sheep are good to go. Sheep's life are simple. We come there and do what? We complicate it. But if this was this way, then I'd be happier. Well, it was this way in my life, then I'd be happier. If I had this in my life, I'd be happier. If the people treated me this way in my life, I'd be happier. And so what happens is always I want. If I had this, then it's always this conditional. If this, then that. It's almost like programming language. And so we come to God the same kind of way. Well, if I had this, I'd be happy. That, I'd be happy. And he said, look, whoa. Do you have a shepherd? And if we have a shepherd, he says, you can be happy. And sometimes we don't realize the shepherd that we have available to us. We want to go what? Go be a lost sheep on our own and then wonder sometimes why we struggle. Shepherds took their sheep out into the wilderness because limited fields were reserved for farming. So the little bit of flatlands they had, they weren't allowed to go into the flatlands there because that's where farming was done. So the shepherds had to take their sheep and the goats, and they had to go out to the sides of the mountains for the wilderness. And so they'd go out to the wilderness there, not the flatlands. So they didn't have the easy street. They had to go out and go to the mountainous terrain. A good shepherd takes them in the wilderness and provides for their needs, not more than their needs. Where do you see any time a shepherd saying, hey, sheep, go get some grass over there and pack your bags and stuff it full of some more grass and take your water bag, take your thermoses and fill it with some more water, because guess what? Tomorrow it's going to be slim pickings. Where do you see any shepherd ever doing that? You don't. That's on us. That's what we do. And sometimes because the sheep are always dependent on the shepherd. They didn't have to circumvent. They didn't have to worry. They didn't have to have anxiety. Why? Because their needs were always met because they had a good shepherd. Sometimes we struggle about aspects of our life. We struggle, worry, we have anxiety and things that come in our life. God, I don't understand. God, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen over here. And tomorrow this might happen in my life. And so it's all these things, places of worry and fret. He says, if you just be like a sheep, man, you'd have some peace. Why? A sheep does what? It just fully trusts. It just fully trusts. And sometimes we have anxiety and worry and stress in our life because we're doing what? We don't trust like a sheep. A sheep is easy. A sheep's life is easy. It can simply trust. The livestock see what they have, not what they're missing. They don't go there and say, hey, shepherd, that shepherd and their sheep, they had more grass than I had today. You're a bad shepherd. And come to God and the shepherd and be all kind of whiny face. They didn't do that. They didn't focus on what another shepherd gave their sheep or what a more sheep had than another sheep. And they had, you took them on that line over there. There's more grass over there, and I got less. They don't focus on what they don't have. They focus on what they do have. And sometimes we have sadness and sorrow and anxiety and worry in our lives because we're what? We're focusing on what we don't have, not on what we do. Not on what we do. What are we told in Scripture? Having food and clothing therewith be what? Unhappy. No, he says content. Having food and clothing, there's raiment, having food and raiment, having food and clothing, therewith be content. And sometimes we're not content because I have this goal and I have this objective. I have this vision of what things that are supposed to be like in my life and not focusing on what we already have. And because of that, sometimes we have hardships and we have a lack of peace in our life because we don't focus on having a good shepherd. Again, this is the idea sometimes we have of Psalm 23, and we think, oh my goodness, the Lord's my shepherd. He's going to take me to all this beautiful, green, lush grass. I'm going to go there, and that's going to be where I have my living at. And that was not what was the case at all. That is a Western mentality. We read back into the Scriptures here. This is the green pastures. That doesn't look very green, does it? That doesn't look very green at all. This is what they would do. And so what happens, remember the flatlands, that's where the farmers were. So the shepherds had to take their animals out to mountainsides, and that's where they found their green pastures. And so they would walk usually along lines that had been developed over hundreds or thousands of years, and they would find their green sprouts of grass there. Here's another idea. These are where you find the green pastures. So along this right here, you would be able to, that they would take their sheep and their goats, they go alongside the mountains, and they would walk alongside the mountains with their sheep. Here's some lines that are very, very easy to be seen because the shadows being cast here. And these lines are lines for been developed for hundreds and thousands of years, where the sheep and the goats walk along the sides of mountains and look for a sprout here, sprout here, sprout here, sprout here. And guess what? The shepherd's providing for their needs on the sides of mountains. That's not what we have the idea of Psalm 23. But this is what what David is writing in Psalm 23. He's saying, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Why? He is providing for all of my needs. All of the needs, are even in this mountainous terrain, can be provided for. It says he makes me lie down, or the idea is that sometimes if you have, when you get sometimes and you have a long day and you get in bed and so you lay down, you go, and you get all sprawling out, you get all comfortable, and now I got me a place. I can sprawl out now, and sometimes and not trying to be anything but PG with you. Sometimes you're like, I just can't wait to get home and get my pajamas or something and stretch out. I've been in all day, in other kind of clothing. I just want to stretch out, put on some stretchy shorts or something like that. And sometimes that's what we want to do. And that's the whole idea, is you want to get there, you want to get comfortable and sprawl out. That's the Hebraic idea behind this word here, is he makes me lie down or sprawl out. I just had a feast. I'm ready to just kind of stretch out now because my belly is full. That's this word here, sprawling out in green pastures. And so here you see some grass there. Here's on the side of this rocky mountain. About a quarter of the year, roughly a quarter of the year, there's extra rain. And so this is the rainy season where there's extra grass. You say, well, there may be some grass there. There's not a ton of grass there. Only about a quarter of the year is there extra grass that's there. And if you think about life sometimes, when I found in my life that there were times when I have seasons with the Lord where I have an abundance of revelation from the Lord, and there's other times, other seasons of my life that I don't have as much revelation from the Lord. But God always gives us what we need when we need it, if we just trust the Good Shepherd. We just trust the Good Shepherd. He makes me sprawl out or in green pastures. Only about a quarter of the year has had this extra grass. From the horizon, it looks like barren and hopeless. But up close, you see the sprouts of life everywhere. Sometimes if you look at the situation sometimes we find ourselves in hard, difficult situations. And when we look at that like that as a hopeless, that is something I do not look forward to in my life. And sometimes we're going through these motions here of hopelessness. We're having no vision, of having no peace. But when we get up close, we can see the provision of God everywhere. Sometimes we don't see the provision of God because we're not getting up close and into his leadership. He said, he leads me beside still waters. Early mornings, there's dew on the straw or on the grass. The good shepherd will not lead his sheep into danger. And the idea behind the still waters is that sheep won't drink moving water. They become skittish. And so the water has to be calm for the sheep to drink. Otherwise, they see a bunch of moving water, they get what? They get skittish and they won't drink. And so listen, the shepherd is not going to lead the sheep by this running water that's going to make the sheep skittish. He's going to do what? He's going to lead them by the still water. Why? So they'll drink. He's what? He's a good shepherd providing for their needs. And they need, unlike goats, they can have moving water. Sheep need calm water, still water. And sometimes you may have a need in your life. Doesn't affect me. I may have a need in my life that you're like, that's stupid. And sometimes sheep will look at what goats need and goats look at what sheep need, and both of them they have different needs. But a shepherd knows both. And so too, a shepherd knows your needs, and a shepherd knows my needs, and he knows how to fulfill them both. Why? He's a good shepherd. He's a good shepherd. He guides me around the paths of righteousness. And in Hebrew, that word is circles. And sometimes we get this idea that if I am walking the straight and narrow, I have a point A to point B, and that is a super straight line. So that if I'm starting to walk with God, it's going to be on a crystal clear, perfect straight line from point A to point B. And that's not how life works. Because when you're on the mountains, that straight line may be around and around and around and around different mountains to get to where you're ever going for by the end of the day. A shepherd would lead him around the right circles, the right circular paths. So here you can see the side of mountains. And so here they're walking around here. And now they're going up over here. And then they're going to come around here. And they're going to keep walking. And so they're walking around. They're in the right paths. This path of righteousness. They're in the right paths. But those paths are circular. And sometimes we can get the idea that, say, God, I'm serving you, I'm following you, I want to understand what your will for my life is. And what happens is, how come I'm going around this way, I'm going around this way? Why can't it be a straight path? Why do I got to go through these challenges, obstacles, and ups and downs and valleys? He said, no, that's normal. It's normal. If we go through hardship sometimes, we go through paths, and that path is round and around and around and not a straight line, so what? That's normal. Sheep don't get straight point A to point B in just one straight line. It's around and around and around. But you need the shepherd to make sure he puts us on the right path. Even though these paths are circular, he's going to make sure we're on the right path to get where he needs to take us, to get the food, to get us the limited amount of shadows that are coming, to make sure he gets us in a place where we can drink twice a day. And that was a part of the objective of the shepherd, to put us on the right path, which is going to be circular. That right path to do what? To take care of all of our needs. Sometimes the paths that we go through will not be a straight line. They'll be around and a circular, they'll be up and they'll be down. But guess what? If we have a shepherd, we're in the middle of the right path. It's not always the wrong path. Sometimes we'll be on the perfect path, and it's not the path that we predicted, because we did what? We saw point A to point B, and that was a direct straight line. That's not how God always works. That's not how God always works. Here's some more. You see the lines here, that line and line and line and line. And so the shepherds put them on the right path, and they go around the mountain and around the mountain. All the way up here, you can see these lines on the sides of the mountains. Those are the paths of righteousness. Those are the right paths. And the shepherd would say, you know what? There may be 100 paths there, but I'm going to make sure you're on the right ones to get where we're trying to get to. And so, too, when we have options and we have choices in our life to different paths to take, and say, God, you know, sometimes it's door A or door B, and sometimes it can be that simple. But sometimes the options may be many, and what we have a good shepherd who will lead us and correct us on the right paths. He guides me around these paths, these circles of righteousness, around the hill caps, and circling along narrow paths, because guess what? If you went too broad, the sheep would begin to slip. They'd fall. They'd hurt themselves. The broad paths, not broad paths, forging new paths, because shortcuts are dangerous. If you know what, you're on a path right here, and there's a path right here, and there's a path over here, and then guess what? If I'm going to go from here to here, the first thing we want to do is, let me just climb right up there. I go on the next path. But sometimes if I need to take an elevation shift, that path may be around a whole mountain that may take me to get from one elevation shift to the next elevation shift to get on the right path. But the shepherd knows how to take me around the path to get me to the elevation I need to get to, whether it be to get to another mountaintop, to get over a ridge, or to get down to water. He may know where he needs to take me in order to get me there. He's not going to say, you know what? Hey, we can shave 3 hours off this trip right now if we do what? Just slide on down to the next path down there. Hey, let's just climb on up or down. You start trying to forge new paths, you what? You're going to have accidents. You're going to have sheep who are falling, sheep that are going to get injured. And then now what? Now you got a big old problem on your hand. Because now you got 100 sheep out there, and now you got 3 of them that are injured. Now you got a problem. You can only carry one at a time. You got a big problem. And so they weren't forging new paths. They're using the existing paths. And in this existing paths, the shepherd would know the paths that need to be taken to get us to where we need to go to in the time frame that he sees best as a good shepherd. Listen, sometimes we have these elevation shifts that take place in our life. Sometimes we'll be up here and things are going nice and well. Sometimes we'll be down here and things will be going nice and well. And also we got to get from point A to point B, and he knows how to get us to where we need to get to when we need to get there. And we don't have to worry about it. Why? If we trust our shepherd. The reason why we stress and fret and worry and anxiety and depression sometimes is because we don't trust. We just talk about trust. We don't really trust. And sometimes I was thinking earlier, we were singing one of the songs earlier, and And sometimes I think about an offerings. And sometimes when sometimes we're willing to offer an offering of a financial offering to the Lord, or offer something else to the Lord that is that would be of service to the Lord or the ministry of the Lord. But sometimes if we can offer our trust as an offering, sometimes we're not saying, God, I choose to offer you my trust. And that's an offering. That's an acceptable offering. How often do we offer the Lord our trust to follow him as an offering? Shepherds won't take them on paths they're not ready for. Shepherds might say, oh, that's a kind of a steeper path over there. I got some young sheep. They're not quite ready for that there, so I'm not doing what? I'll take them around the long path because I can't take them on this other path to be a little more adventurous if they're not ready for it. That's what a good shepherd does. The area isn't feasible. It demands a shepherd. Life, too, demands a shepherd. He didn't say, okay, in your life you're going to have these trials right here, and they're a nice little box, all nice and fenced in, and these are all the trials you're going to have in your life. He says, no, man, you're going to have a bunch of challenges in your life. And we need a shepherd in order to navigate those challenges. Otherwise, we will become a lost sheep. Listen, lost sheep who leave the pack, who leave the shepherd, they were easy prey for predators. And then these predators, they come in there, they lie in wait for a sheep to leave the pack, to leave the shepherd. And when they would do what? They go into the shadows or they go into isolation. And when they do that, they are easy prey. And that's why the good shepherd will leave the 99 and go after the one. Why? Because he can't survive on his own. He can't survive on his own. And so, too, he designed life so that what? We would be perfectly fine like a sheep if we do what? Follow the shepherd. Follow the shepherd. For his name's sake, it says his reputation was based on his ability to lead the sheep. You wouldn't have a shepherd would have a bad reputation. A shepherd would have a bad reputation if he did what? If he led his sheep into a place where they were always getting injured, always getting hurt. They're coming back starved or coming back frail because they didn't have enough water to drink. And all the things they wouldn't have a shepherd would not allow his name to be tarnished in such a way for his name's sake. Listen, God is not going to allow us to go through hardships that he is not there to help us, guide us through those things to get us to where we need to get to. Why? Because I'd make him look bad. Please hear me on this. God's not going to be a bad shepherd for us. Why? It would tarnish his name. Think about this. It would tarnish his name. And to make sure that God has a good reputation, he's going to do what? Be a good shepherd. If we're going through hardships and trials and we don't know how to navigate through situations, maybe it's because we are navigating and forging our own path without the need of our shepherd. One rabbi said, worry is dealing with tomorrow's problems on today's pastures. Isn't that the truth? Worry is dealing with tomorrow's problems on today's pastures. And this is the part that I've been getting on here, been meditating on for the last few weeks. Just kind of just keep popping up in my head, and the Lord keeps talking and ministering to me, and been prayerfully meditating through this. And so even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and the word right here in the valley is the idea of ravines. Remember, because they're in a mountainous terrain, and the valley is where the water runs down on the side of the mountains. When there is water, it runs down, and you have a little bit of vegetation sometimes in between the mountain ridges, and the valleys. The ravines is where sometimes be life and go, and that's where the shepherds would take the sheep to get the water they need twice a day to be able to sustain themselves. So even though I walk through the valleys, these shadows, these ravines, in the shadow of death. But if you look what it says here, he does not say, even though I walk in front of you through, and we were able to avoid all of these shadows. He does not say that. It is a daily occurrence to walk through the shadows. That's part of it. The sun is always moving. And so what was a shadow in the morning is not going to be a shadow in the afternoon, and vice versa. The shadows are always moving. And every time you go around a bend, you go around this circular part of a mountain there, you go, what? Now you weren't in a shadow, but now you are. Or vice versa. And so the good shepherd would try to minimize how many shadows they got to go through. But guess what? It was part of it. It's part of it. So he knows, you know what? We can't stay too long on this side of the mountain here because the shadow is changing, and I don't want you to be too long in the shadow because it's going to be less safe. So you know what? So he would guide them and help them stay in and to minimize the amount of shadows they had to go through, but they still had to go through them. Even though I walk through the valley. He didn't say even though I avoid. Even though I walk. Sometimes we have trials and circumstances in our life and we think, oh, God must be judging me because I have a hardship in my life right now. Sometimes nothing to do with the case at all. Sometimes it's just part of life. Sometimes it's just an exercise to do what? Cling to the shepherd. Why? We have a good shepherd. We have a good shepherd. Here you see again, you see the ravines, these down here, and sometimes the shepherd would bring them down here. And they'd walk through here, and you see here there's shadow, up there there's not. And sometimes they would go around and around, and sometimes you go back and forth between shadows and a lack of shadows. And spend the least amount of time possible in those shadowy areas. Here again you can see. You can see the lines. They're up here where the sheep are walking. But now this time of day, it's a shadow area. And what happens in the shadows? The opportunity for accidents can happen, but where predators are at. And so what would happen is the shepherd would always lead his sheep whenever they're walking around, they're changing mountaintops, they're changing elevations, and he's always leading his sheep. But every time they go through a shadow, he would stop leading and he would pull back to do what? Now walk in the midst of the sheep. So even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Not because you are leading me. Why? Because now you are with me. At night, there's only darkness. People get the idea sometimes that this idea, even though I walk through the valley or the shadow of death, the idea is that this must be dark, turbulent trials in our life. It's nighttime. It's not nighttime at all. How many shadows do you have at night? See what it's saying? It's not saying I'm going through a period of great darkness right now, and this darkness right now is all gloom, is all darkness, and guess what? It's all challenges all the time, all the time. That's not what he's saying here. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I had to have a light source, daytime, in order for there to be a shadow. You might have a small shadow from a moon, but not very much. During the middle of the day, the sun is casting shadows. Sometimes we can be walking in the path of righteousness where the sun is shining down on us and blessing us. And in that place of blessing, there might be a short shadowy area, so a short trial in our life. But we have nothing to fear. Why? We have a good shepherd. A good shepherd. The only time we have to fear is what? Is if I leave the shepherd. Sometimes we can wonder, well, how can I know I'm going through a hard time in my life right now? How can I have a hard time in my life over here? And now, is this a place of judgment? Or am I just going through a normal cycle here where I'm going through a shadow with the shepherd? How can I know the difference? It's easy. Do I have a shepherd nearby or not? If I'm going through a period of darkness in my life and I don't have the shepherd leading me and guiding me and comforting me, guess what? I've left the fold. I've left my shepherd. I'm lost. But I'm going through a hard time in my life, and the Lord is blessing me. He's with me. He's comforting me. Guess what? He's still in my midst. I'm in his presence. And I'm clinging to him. And now I'm in the shadow area, so now I'm doing what? Why? I'm in the shadow of death. And I'm doing what? He's now, he's over here. The good shepherd is now, he's walking back in my midst. And so what are we doing? The sheep. I gotta get to my shepherd now. I'm gonna be nice and safe. Why? That's a good shepherd. It's a good shepherd. Sometimes we have trials and circumstances in our life, and we try to go at them all alone. And then we wonder why God isn't in the midst of blessing our lives. Because sometimes we try to go solo into places of hardship or solo in places of life. And what the objective is, what the goal is to go through, listen, is to walk with the shepherd before I go into the place of darkness. So many times we want to go into a place of darkness and trials. Now I'm going to pour my heart out to the Lord to help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. He says, no. Have we had the good shepherd to walk with the shepherd who's going to lead us and guide us in the right paths. And then when I go to the place of darkness, I don't begin seeking the Lord at that time. Why? He is with me. Sometimes we wait, and then I try to seek the Lord. I get a hardship. That's not the time to do it. I'm not saying God won't come through for us. I'm not saying that. But that's not how the life was designed for us. Life was designed to be simple. Because if you're a sheep, if you have a good shepherd, life is simple. That's what He designed our life to be. Simple. Shadows can't be avoided. They must be passed through. So too in life, we'll have shadows that come into our life. Not saying that we necessarily have left the fold, necessarily that we are in sin. It could be. But sometimes we be nothing like that at all. Sometimes in a normal course of life, we have difficulties in life we need to navigate. But we have a good shepherd. It says, Jehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. I won't lack. He makes me sprawl out in green pastures. He leads me beside calm waters. He restores my soul. When I've been outside the mountains and the sun's been beating down and now we get a place to get refreshed and sprawl out, He's a good shepherd. He rescues my soul, restores it. He guides me around the paths of righteousness. Because He's not going to tarnish His name and being a bad shepherd. And even though I walk through the ravines, the valleys, and the dark shadows, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. My challenge to us this morning is, as we leave here, is to look at our lives and say, God, are You being a good shepherd to me, or am I being a rebellious sheep who keeps trying to leave the fold? Because too often we're doing what? We're the sheep who are doing what? Leaving the fold. And then we come and say, God, then we ask God all the questions of why? Well, you left the fold. And sometimes we leave the fold, and sometimes we have a hardship because we are separated from our shepherd. Other times we will have hardship that come into our lives. It has nothing to do with judgment, has nothing to do with any kind of a plan that God has to harm us or to hurt us. It's a normal process of life that we get to grow through. Listen, if He was always leading us and never walking in the midst of us, we wouldn't know the comfort of the shepherd. Hear my heart. We wouldn't understand the comfort of the good shepherd if He was always ahead of us and leading. We get to know both sides of our good shepherd. We get to know how He leads us and guides us. And then we also get to know Him, how He comforts us, protects us, preserves us. He's both. And we get to see both sides of a good shepherd if we're following Him. Father, thank You. Thank You, thank You